I'm Linda Coles, and this is Tell Us a Story. Today I'm back with Nick Davies. While his background is in field and retail sales, as well as being called to the bar back in 1999 and briefly working as a lawyer, Nick has been a trainer, speaker and coach since 2006 and started the really great training company in 2008. Over the years, he's accumulated a wealth of experience, training and teaching lawyers, accountants, senior managers and civil servants from the exceptionally junior to the incredibly senior on how to sell, persuade, close, speak, negotiate, network and develop business, either on one-to-one or in large groups. He's also the author of How to Be Great at the Stuff You Hate, the straight-talking guide to persuading, selling and networking, which was published by Wiley. He has an awesome list of clients, including the royal household. Yes, you heard me right. And that's where we left him on a previous episode at a conference in Blackpool with the opportunity of a lifetime. So what exactly do you do when you find yourself sat next to someone from the royal household? Is it a networking dream or is it a nightmare for some perhaps? Well, let's find out. So from somewhere just, I don't know, are you south or north of Edinburgh, Nick, in the depths of winter?
Southeast of Edinburgh, 16 miles southeast of Edinburgh, yes.
Okay. So a trainer of communication skills to the royal household. Welcome to the show again, Nick, for part two. Nick Davies.
Thank you very much, Linda. Great to speak to you again.
And you. It's lovely to have you
and your
back.
Listener.
Pardon?
And your listener.
I hope there's more than one person listening to this. I know my hubby listens, so I know there's at least one. So you told us half a story last time you were on, which was, I don't know how many months ago now, but I'm intrigued to know more. So why don't we start there and tell the story from you went to a conference in Blackpool and you met a woman. Go from there.
Well, it was, and many of your listeners will identify with this, Linda. It was the morning of the conference, so delegates are arriving, going to the registration table, picking up the delegate pack, getting themselves a cup of coffee or tea, and then having to decide which table to seat themselves on. And I turned round from the table, and it was a relatively small conference, as I recall. There were about 7 circular tables around which there were probably going to be about 10 people, and one near the front happened to have somebody sitting on it already, and I thought, well, I'll just go and sit next to her, and I plonked myself next to her, put my coffee down, and obviously, as one does, introduced myself, said, "Good morning, I'm Nick," and she went, "Good morning, my name's Maggie." Mm-hmm. And apart from being a very glamorous lady, very well turned out, and I noticed these things because I worked in women's fashion for some years, selling women's fashion, you understand, shoes, and not actually wearing women's fashion. But apart from that, the thing that really struck me was that she had a very strong Glaswegian accent. It's an unmistakable accent, Glasgow accent, and that's what I commented on. I said, "Oh, that sounds like a Glaswegian accent," and she said, "Yes, and I know Glasgow reasonably well." And I said, "Oh, whereabouts in Glasgow?" And she mentioned somewhere south of Glasgow, which I know again reasonably well, and it just went from there. And it was a 2-day conference, and Maggie was her name. And we weren't sitting next to each other for the entirety of the conference because there were breakout sessions. I was one of the breakout speakers, actually. Mm-hmm. So she went to different sessions, and there was a meal in the evening, but she ate with some other people and I ate with some other people. But on the last day of the conference, after the last speaker, obviously we got to know each other reasonably well. And early on in our encounter, when you say, "Oh, so what do you do?" She said, "Well, I'm head of learning and development for the royal household." And probably like your listener, I was I was struck with, oh gosh, I hadn't even realised that the royal household do have. I mean, who would have thought they had a learning and development person, but they do, because actually the royal household it employs 1,000 people.
Wow.
There are 1,000 people who keep the royal house or the royal family going, and also the numerous palaces and castles and the gardens and the art collections and the antiquities and the books, because it's, and the shops, and because it's a big retail thing now, and Buckingham Palace is open to the public for 3 months during the summer, and it's just like any large organisation. You have HR functions, you have training, you have facilities, and all these things. And she was head of L&D, and I followed up with her in the usual way that I do follow up with people that I wish to meet again, that I've met in a networking situation. And the rest, as they say, is history.
When she first said, "Oh, I work for the royal household," what did you say? I mean, did you fall off your chair at this point, or what happened?
I did. Well, I didn't fall off my chair, but I was amazed. I was like, "Oh wow, that must be fascinating." And she went, "Yeah, it's very interesting. It is which I think is an understatement." Really? Yes, it's fairly interesting. I said, what do you do? She said, and she went on to explain what I've just explained, is that, well, the royal household comprises of 1,000 people, and therefore we have an HR function and a learning and development function, and the functions that you would expect a decent sized organisation. And, I just wanted to know more, as you would. So at the end of the conference, I said, and I did, this is follow up with people, Linda, at the end of conferences, if I want to follow up. I certainly did with this woman. I said, well, look, it's been really fascinating chatting to you and getting to know you. I'd love to find out more about what it is that you do. We should get together for a cup of coffee. It'd be great to find out more about what it is you do. And, if you've been talking to somebody in a networking event for sort of 20, 25 minutes, and you say to them, look, I'd love to find out more about what it is that you do, we should get together for a cup of coffee. It's really culturally and socially unacceptable for the person to go, no. Let's not bother. I challenge any of your listeners, next time somebody says that to them, to just go, no, I don't see the point.
You're right.
It's very, very difficult. It's not impossible, but it's. I've never had a situation where anybody has said to me, "Well, Nick, it's been great chatting to you, but let's be honest. As far as I'm concerned, it ends here."
No, that would be a certain kind of individual, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be a certain kind of individual. So, I say that to Maggie, we should get together. I'd love to find out more about what you do. And of course, she says, yes, that would be great, because that's what people say.
Yeah.
And then you follow up with, fantastic. Well, I'll give you a ring in a few days' time, and we'll put a date in the diary. And that's, sorry.
Carry on, Nick.
Well, that's how I follow up with people. I just, you take the bull by the horns and you go, great. Well, listen, I'll give you a ring in a few days' time, and we'll put a date in the diary. It's the assumptive close, if you will, that line, and we'll put a date in the diary. Most people are quite timid about this, and they kind of, when they're following up with people after networking, they might send them a LinkedIn invite, or they might send them an email saying, it was lovely to meet you last night at the networking event. And then they'll put something rather wishy-washy, which would be sort of, oh, it might be nice to meet for a cup of coffee. Well, yeah, it might be, but then, so might be peace in the Middle East. But should we be a bit more positive about it? So you always do that while you're in front of the person, then, because, like you say, the chance of them saying no, let's not take it any further. I mean, you're not on a date, are you? No. But if you wait, you see, while you're standing in front of somebody, as I was with Maggie, or sitting next to her, the relationship is hot because you're standing in front of people. As soon as you shake hands and part company with that person, the relationship cools, because you are not in each other's company, and they're now in, 24, 48 hours later, they are in their office and you are in your office. And what most people are doing is emailing, and they're trying to warm somebody up to a point where they are receptive to a cup of coffee. And that's making it harder than it needs to be. So people should be trying to set this up whilst they're still in front of the person, by saying, because you're getting on. By the way, you're not going to want to follow up with people that you've not got on with. So this presupposes that there's some kind of connection between the two of you. Otherwise, why would you want to meet them again, for goodness sake?
Yeah.
So yes, I'll give you a ring in a few days' time. We'll put a date in the diary, and then one phones them up. You phone them up and go, "Hello, Maggie, it's Nick here from the conference in Blackpool. Oh, hi, Nick. How are you? Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm just phoning up to sort that coffee out. And at the moment, I'm looking at either the 15th or the 16th. And that's the other thing I would urge people to do is, for goodness sake, don't phone people up and go, when's best for you? Because that puts the ball in the other person's court as soon as you say when's best for you, and they now have complete control over when this coffee happens. And the other reason one should avoid doing this is because it gives the person limitless choice. And we know from lots of research that if you give human beings too much choice, they don't make decisions. It's too difficult. Human beings actually don't like a lot of choice. We like a little bit of choice. And, if you think about when you go to a restaurant, let's say on a business lunch, it's always a blessed relief when the waiting staff present you with a menu that's on one side of an A4 piece of paper, then the 5 starters, 5 main courses and 5 desserts. Because then it's really easy to decide what to eat. If somebody gives you a menu that's a book, you're like, bloody hell, I don't know what to eat. It's just too much, So you phone people.
That is the truth. That is the truth. And I was just thinking back to when I used to work in optics, and when someone would call to make an appointment for an eye test, we would give them what we called the rule of 3, which was to give them 3 appointments when it suited us, i.e. our quiet times, rather than say when suits you. And then she's got to think, well, I've got to get the cat to the vet, I've got to get the little one off to nursery, I've got to go X, Y, and Z and A, B, and C. And suddenly it's too big a decision. It's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. But if you say I've got 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, or 5 o'clock, which is going to be it? And done.
Yes, done. Could I add something to that? It is my habit, actually. Well, if you're setting up cups of coffee with people and actually meetings with people, and you give them on the hour, so 10, 11, or 12, the human brain, being what it is, just rounds up to whole numbers. So if you say, oh, well, let's put a meeting in the diary for 1, people just assume, people will block out until 2. Nobody in their right mind would block out until, I don't know, 1:37. right? Because that just makes us feel really uncomfortable. And yet the meeting might well finish at 1:37, but nobody in their right mind would block that out. So what I tend to do is, so I will give people 2 days, let's say the 14th or the 15th. If Maggie then chooses, oh, let's go for the 15th, and I will go then morning or afternoon best for you, and she says, can we do morning? Then I would offer up 9:15 or, I don't know, 10:45. I wouldn't dream of going, 9:17 or 10:22, because that would just freak people out.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can. But if you do on the 15, if you do on the 1:45 or the 1:15, it causes in people what they call cognitive dissonance. So it's kind of it's like, oh, that's a bit odd in their brains, and they don't quite know when it's going to finish. It is a meeting that starts at 10:15. Is it going to finish at 11, or is it going to finish at 11:15? And the answer is it doesn't really matter, but it just. I don't want your listeners to get bogged down in this, but I found over the years that it's quite an effective little technique. And I've met a few other salespeople who do exactly the same, who find it just adding that little bit of quirkiness it helps. And also this is that if you make an appointment with somebody at 10:15, if somebody has got a meeting from 9 till 10, yes, and you're going to see it at 10:15, it gives them a little 15-minute breather.
Yeah.
It gives them chance, pop to Lou, check an email, and then go, oh, now who am I seeing next? I'm seeing Nick. Now, hang on, let me just refresh my mind as to where Nick's from, rather than, oh my God, I've got back-to-back meetings.
And that's a good tip in itself, isn't it? Because, like you say, most people stick to the hour or the half past. They don't go for the 2:15, 2:45. So that's a nifty little trick. Makes you stand out a little bit. And
yes.
I bet you've got a whole heap of those buried in that book that you wrote as well, haven't you?
Yeah, just little things that I've learned through trial and error just work, really.
Yeah. No, nobody likes going to networking events, but then to find yourself in such a situation, it's handy to know what to do when the Maggies of this world end up sitting next to you and you think, okay, now, what did Nick Davies say? What have I got to do now? Oh, I've got to get a diary date. I've got to do that today while we're here together and not do it by email. And that's a mistake people make. And I've done it myself because it's easy. You send an email. You don't pick up the phone. No,
that's right. That's right. And I'm going to urge millennials, and I say this because actually increasingly, and it's only relatively recently, I think it's because millennials are coming into the workplace, actually. And what I'm finding, and in fact, as recently as last week, senior people that I'm training are telling me that they're having a nightmare trying to get millennials to pick up the phone. There was a partner in a training course last week, a partner at law firm. She said, I'm advising this young trainee lawyer to say, look, just pick up the phone and speak to the client. And she said, they're just so reluctant to speak to people, and yet you can get things sorted out much more readily over the phone. Yeah. And also over the phone, you can hear and pick up on the tone of people's voices, so you're getting much more of a sense of their mood and whether they're up for this or not. And that's why I phoned the Maggies of this world to get dates in the diary, because I'll be able to tell over the phone whether Maggie's a little bit reluctant to go for a cup of coffee or whether she's really enthusiastic. And if I pick up that she's reluctant, I will embrace that and go, listen, if the timing's not right, Maggie, let's just wait. Would it be easier if I just kind of sent you some information in the post and maybe drop your line in a few months' time? And you can hear the relief in people's voices. They go, oh, well, would that be all right, Nick? You see, you can't get that from email.
No, there's no body language in an email, is there? There's nothing.
No, there's no pitch, tone, and pace. That's the problem with email. Is it's the recipient who decides the tone, in inverted commas, of this email, and that's wrong. Of course, it's dangerous. So pick up the phone, people. It's a lot quicker as well.
It is. Why do you think most people don't? Is it just the fear of rejection? Do you think, or they're just I don't want to do it, even when you're not going to be rejected about something? Or why don't people want to pick up the phone?
I think one of those things is technology, isn't it? Somebody once said to me, the mobile phone, or for people in other parts of the world, the cell phone. Imagine if when the mobile phone had first come out, all you could do with it was type on it and send messages, typed messages. And then Apple had come out with a revolutionary new device where you could speak. We'd all be like, oh my God, we don't have to type anymore. We can actually speak on these things, right? And it's really, exactly. But it's really weird because it didn't. It started as a phone, and now people type on it, whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter or Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook or WhatsApp, or just plain old text. And yet what you're holding in your hand is a bloody phone, and it's easier to speak than it is to type.
And you would think, I mean, everyone's heard of Alexa. Even New Zealand have got Alexa now. It was launched, well, a few weeks ago, February. We're still in February.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Right, interesting.
So we're just catching up on Alexa. And you've got Siri.
Yes.
You know, Siri search via Google now. It takes up a huge chunk of search. We don't have to type in anymore. We can just say, Siri, chip shop near wherever you are, and she'll tell you.
Yes.
So that's bizarre then that people don't want to pick up the phone when we're going to voice automated things in artificial intelligence.
Well, I also think a part of this, and I get this a lot in training, is when people say to me, "Well, I don't like to phone because everybody's so busy and it's quite intrusive." And I understand that because we all are very, very busy. We've created very, very busy lives for ourselves. And anybody of my generation will tell you that when there were only three ways of getting in touch with people, which was either you wrote to them, you spoke to them over the phone, or you met them.
Yeah.
We were less stressed out. I mean, anybody will tell you that of my generation. The world was absolutely a less stressful place.
Yeah.
So we've created all this noise, and because of that, people are reluctant, and people do. They say to me, "Oh, but people are so busy, and the phone is very intrusive." And I go, yeah, I get that. But in a world in which the people that you are trying to connect with are bombarded with people getting in touch with them, you have to do things that other people aren't doing. And whilst all your competitors are emailing everybody and their emails are lost in amongst the hundreds of emails that people are getting every day of the week, actually a phone call stands out. And you would be amazed at how many people you get through. Do you know, I was watching a video online yesterday by a guy called Professor Martin Elliott, and he was a paediatric cardiologist. So he operated on the hearts of very, very small newborn babies. I mean, unbelievable. And his talk is about how people in operating theatres learned from Formula One pit crews of how better to hand things over from the operating theatre to in the intensive care unit, because they were losing a lot of babies on the handover. And one of the leading heart surgeons went, "Do you know what? Maybe we could learn something from F1 pit crews, because they do a handover when a Formula One racing car comes into the pits. That's a very precious car. You've got a £7 million car and a driver, and all these things have to be changed, and then they have to leave safely." And what this cardiologist did is he picked up the phone and rang the Ferrari, I think it was Ferrari pit crew, and he got put through. I mean, they were actually at a Formula One Grand Prix somewhere in the world, and the guy just phoned, and he managed to get through to a guy in the pit crew at a Formula One, and that set up a meeting with Ferrari at Maranello, and they teamed up with one another. So you'll be amazed. You'll be amazed at how many people you get through to. And it also demonstrates that you're not like everybody else, that you're keen and you're eager.
And what I find, when somebody's sent me an email, say they're making their first inquiry, they want to sort of suss out what I do or how much it is or meet or whatever, I generally then pick the phone up as soon as that email's landed, if I can, or within 10 minutes of it, because it's still fresh in their mind. They haven't moved on to something completely different, gone getting coffee or whatever else. They're probably still sat at their desk. So I ring them back. And 9 times out of 10, people will say to me, A, thanks for ringing, and B, thanks for getting back to me so promptly. And I think, yes, well, what do other folks do? They must leave it for days.
They do. That's exactly, because do you know what? That's really interesting. There's you sitting in New Zealand and experiencing that, and I'm on the other side of the planet, and I get exactly the same. You get a little bit of surprise that you've actually rung, and it's a delighted surprise, isn't it? It's not like a peed off surprise. It's a delighted surprise, and you get oh right, okay, thanks for getting in touch. And it also allows you to build rapport with people, because you can have a little bit of a chat. You can do a little bit of small talk, even if it's just, oh well, what's the weather like where you are?
Yeah. And it's a
yes, it's not to be underrated.
It is. It's just a chance, like you said earlier. You can feel the tone of who you're talking to. You're starting to build a picture, like reading a book. You know, you're making these characters up as they go along what you're reading in the book. And it's the same when you pick the phone up and you're talking to someone that you have no idea anything about them. And you may have looked at their LinkedIn profile before you made the call, of course. So at least you've got a picture or know what they're up to. But you're just trying to form an opinion and trying to form an image of the person, and it's got a lot more for it than emails, for sure.
Yes, yeah, without a doubt.
So you've got a great video series, Nick, and it's called Nick's Flicks, which I think is a great play on Netflix.
Thank you.
And there's a whole bunch of them. I don't know how many you've got on YouTube now. They're only, a minute and a half long, and they're packed full of great information on all sorts of subjects. And there's a couple that I'd like to just pull out. One is about sitting next to one another rather than opposite one another when you're going into a meeting. So tell us a bit more about that one in a 30 seconds.
When you're going into a meeting with somebody, normally what happens with me, and again, your listeners will identify with this, is if I'm going to meet somebody for a cup of coffee, one of the people of the reception team will invariably take me through to the room in which the meeting is going to take place, and say, I don't know, Linda will be with you in a minute, please help yourself, you take a seat, help yourself to tea and coffee. And I do neither. I don't take a seat and I don't have a cup of coffee, because I want to try and dictate where I sit in relation to the person that I'm meeting. And what happens is they come in, shake my hand, put their files, paperwork, pen, mobile device down, and then go to the credenza and say, oh, can I get you a drink, Nick? And yes, I'll have a black coffee, no sugar, thank you very much indeed. And my cue as to where I should sit is where they have placed their papers. And I want to be perpendicular. I want to be at 90 degrees to them. I don't want to be sitting opposite them, because it's too us and them. It's too potentially confrontational, and there's a huge bit of a block of wood between us. Yeah. Equally, I don't want to be sitting right next to you, because that would unnerve you and freak you out. What kind of weirdo is this person? But at 90 degrees is perfect, and it just sets the tone, and it's easier to build rapport. So it's something I'm always looking for. And it gives them the opportunity to get me a cup of coffee, and normally they're saying, kicking off a small talk by saying, oh, did you find us all right, or isn't it an amazing view that you've got from this window? So no, I don't. I want to meet people physically on the same level as well. That's important, so that you see each other as equals. You don't want to be kind of half out of your seat as you're shaking hands with people. It's just psychologically, it's not brilliant to do that, really. I mean, it's not the end of the world, you understand, but you want to get these things off to as best start as you can.
Yes, absolutely. And I do that in coffee shops. Now, I wear two hearing aids. So I quite often use that as an excuse to sit a bit close to somebody, because then it saves me having to say, pardon, because coffee shops, the noise bounces around a bit sometimes, doesn't it? So if you don't wear hearing aids out there, and maybe you have trouble in a noisy coffee shop, it's also a nice way of doing it. Not sitting right next to one another, like you say, it's a little bit weird, but you don't have to sit right opposite either, just because everybody else does.
No, it feels like an interview. And by the way, that's a very important thing in negotiations. It's a very, very strange thing about negotiations. Negotiation is something that I teach a lot of, and I'm being asked increasingly to teach it, because people's lack of knowledge in negotiation is scary. But why do people sit opposite each other in a negotiation? I mean, there's no rule. The EU don't have a directive or regulation. although, wait long enough and they'll come up with one, that you should sit opposite. And yet people do. But what that promotes is this confrontation, us and them. And also people, you then literally have a different point of view and perspective to the other person. Literally. Actually, one of the very, very powerful things in negotiation is to sit next to somebody, because then the thing over which you are negotiating, you can put on the table if it's a document, and the pair of you have the same point of view. There are other reasons why that's a very powerful thing to do, but certainly getting round a table. If there's one thing I could do in offices, is I would get rid of every oblong or square or rectangular or square table in meeting rooms, because what tends to happen is, and it tends generally to be a man that will sit at the top, and very quickly you find that somebody naturally takes leadership of the meeting, etc. Whereas if you get round a table, literally nobody can take a position.
Interesting. And I'm guessing then, when you're in conferences and when you're in a training situation and a workshop, you're very often round a round table, aren't you? And more inclusive.
Yes, which is, when you hear about negotiations, actually people do say, oh, we should get round the table. But then what they do is they sit at rectangular tables, and they're very poor at building rapport and agreement.
So a couple of other things that when I emailed you, Nick, about coming back on the show and talking about, I asked you what you were passionate about. Do you remember some of the replies?
Yes, and there are some things I don't think your listeners should know.
No, I won't read them all out. But shoes, I'm thinking that shoes has got to be right up there when it comes to...
Yeah, it is. It is.
Go for it. I know shoes is one of your passions as well as important business. My first Saturday job was as a very, very it was a big national retailer of shoes. Those of your listeners of a certain age and based in the UK will remember a shop called Dolce's, which yes.
were big. But yes, you remember Dolce's, and basically they sold cheap, nasty shoes. Is what they did. But I got sacked from Dolce's for reasons that I shan't go into. It was nothing horrible, and I ended up working at a very prestigious, very smart shoe shop called Russell and Bromley in Manchester. Mm-hmm. Russell and Bromley are a privately owned company, still are, owned by the Bromley family, a family-owned company, only in the UK, about 48 branches, but they sell very, very upmarket shoes and handbags, men's and women's shoes. And I worked there, and then later in my life, I worked there full time for 6 years while studying my law degree, which I did part time. So I got a love and appreciation of very fine footwear, and because I was spoiled at 16 and 17, I can't abide cheap shoes on my feet. I've been ruined for life, Linda. Honestly,
a shoe snob.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is, my two sons, one of whom is 19, is now a supervisor for Russell and Bromley.
Aww.
He works in their Regent Street shop. And my youngest son, who is 16, recently he got a Saturday job at Russell and Bromley in Edinburgh. So now there is three of us who've got an appreciation of exceptionally expensive footwear, and we've got more shoes than we know what to do with.
So what about those that can't afford it, though? What do we do?
What do you do is you go for the most that you can afford. But what's more important than, because actually it is only the wearer, really. As a wearer of expensive shoes, you do feel the quality. I mean, there's no question about that. You do. There's no question about that. But actually, what's more important, and as you can imagine, shoes is one of the first things I notice about people, and handbags actually, is just make sure they're clean. I mean, seriously, you might be starting off in your career, you haven't got a lot of money, or maybe you just don't want to spend hundreds of dollars, hundreds of pounds on a pair of shoes, which I could completely understand. I mean, there are far more important things to spend money on. But no matter what price point you buy, for goodness sake, make them clean. I mean, I notice guys in the City of London who look really, really smart. They've got, because I do notice these things. They look really smart guys, smart shirt, smart tie, and then you look down at their shoes and I'm serious, they're an utter disgrace. And what that says to me is that, you nearly got that whole outfit right, but you couldn't be bothered. You just nearly had it right, but the shoes you can't be bothered with. And again, it might seem old-fashioned, but I don't care. It speaks volumes as far as I'm concerned.
Well, it's part of the detail, isn't it? It's part of the finishing.
It is. It's part of the finishing. And what I think subconsciously people are thinking, okay, so if you've cut that little corner, if you just couldn't be bothered with that, if you looked at your shoes, you just went, oh, well, they'll do. What else in your life do you just go, oh, well, that'll do? And in your business life, if you're trying to sell me something, or sell me a service or a product, are you going to deliver 95% and then go, oh, well, that'll do? Because it won't do.
Yeah.
Sorry, I get quite passionate about this.
No, I'm going to tell you a little story now. We've got a trucking company over here in New Zealand called Main Freight, and they're a sort of a pale to royal blue trucks, and there's hundreds of thousands of them on the road. You'll never see a dirty truck, never. Mm-hmm. Not on the dirtiest, wettest days. Their trucks are pristine. If you go into their warehouse, their forklift trucks get resprayed regularly, because their philosophy is that if you as a client come to the warehouse and see our forklifts that are in pristine condition, you know that we're going to take good care of your product. If it's all chipped and gnarly and run down looking, you're going to wonder how we're going to look after and ship your product. And that's their philosophy, or part of it. And you will never see a dirty Main Freight truck.
I suspect that they've taken that from UPS. I say to all your listeners, look out next time you see a UPS truck and see whether it's dirty. And the answer to that question is it's not, because the drivers clean them every single day. UPS, by the way, I was listening to something not so long ago. UPS teach their drivers how to get in and out of the vans, and they go on it used to be, the guy was saying, it used to be a full day course on just how to get in and out of the van, because they over monitoring it, they know the most efficient way to get in and out of the van. but UPS trucks are immaculately clean, and you see the delivery men and women, their uniforms are immaculately kept. That's in stark contrast, and I say this to your UK listeners, in stark contrast to people who work for the Royal Mail. and actually, you would think, wouldn't you, that any organisation that was lucky enough to be able to have its first name as Royal would take utter pride in their appearance. I just ask anybody in the UK, look at the people who work, the way the people are dressed. They're lovely people who work for Royal Mail, but their attention to detail, well, there isn't any.
No, they need to go to UPS school or Main Freight school, obviously. So one of the other passions that you said was your collection of fine watches. I think you've got 4 or 5.
I do. I'm lucky enough to have 5 very nice watches. Yes,
and
I do.
How did you get into, what was the interest for watches? I mean, watches, you've got a watch on your phone or a timekeeping mechanism on your phone. It's not a watch. So watches are something, again, that you don't necessarily see around like you would have done 40 years ago. But you're different, no. Nick.
Well, you say that, although I was in a very nice jewellers and watch retailer on Princess Street in Edinburgh, on George Street in Edinburgh at the weekend. And one of the guys in the watch department said that actually the profile of their customers is changing, and they're getting a lot more younger guys. He said actually younger guys coming in, buying proper timepieces.
As in what you might put in your pocket or a watch on your wrist?
No, on your wrist, but something that is, something that is a proper handmade thing, notwithstanding that actually nobody in the 21st century needs a watch, because anybody who's got a phone, and I'm looking at my iPhone right now, it's got the time on it. You don't need a watch. And I wonder whether it's the same thing, that actually digital downloads of music, you get the finest quality music through a digital download. And yet the sales of albums, the sales of vinyl and the sales of record players are on the up.
They are.
Because human beings, oddly enough, don't really like perfection. And we like things that we are sensory beings, and we like organic things, and things that work and tick. And the thing about a record is that you take it out of a sleeve and it's got physical grooves in it, and you can hear the little crackles and imperfections, and actually in a weird way that gives us a nicer sensory experience. And I think there's an element of that with a watch. Certainly, I mean, for me, a watch is just part of my everyday dress. And I kind of feel naked without a watch on. But also, and also, for blokes, we don't really wear rings. We don't really wear we don't have I suppose some guys wear earrings, but women generally have a lot more jewellery and accessory options. You can put things in their hair, etc., and bracelets and necklaces, etc., and brooches. And us guys don't have that. But a watch is something that we can turn to. And I admire the workmanship, the aesthetic of a watch, and I tend to buy watches that I just like the look of, and also just the idea that a human being and human beings have sat down and made something that really doesn't need to be made anymore, and yet human beings still make them, even though it's not necessary. And I think that's a wonderful thing.
Yes, and I remember you telling me a bit of a tale about the insides of a watch, I think it was.
Yes.
Some time ago now. Can you remember the tale?
Can you remember the tale? Yes. Do you know what? It was the same jewellers that I was in at the weekend, because I kind of pop in there every few months because they've got some beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a guy who works for IWC, and again, some of your listeners, if they're into watches, will be familiar with IWC. They're a very fine watch brand. But actually, he'd been recently, he'd gone to Switzerland to the Jaeger LeCoultre factory. And again, some of your listeners will be familiar with that brand, Jaeger LeCoultre, who are a well-known Swiss watch brand. And he'd been around the factory to see how they manufacture watches, and he said it's just incredible how many people it takes to manufacture a watch, and every person has a little job to do. And he met one particular woman on this tour, and she has to glue or affix the jewels in a watch. Now, again, people will know or may be aware that in really fine watches you have jewels. And in fact, if you look on the back of a proper watch, it'll say, 17 jewels. And probably people are thinking, why do you need jewels? Well, they use jewels because there's a lot of friction. If you can imagine the working parts in a watch, it's metal rubbing against metal, and there's a lot of friction. But jewels reduce that friction. So that they're used to reduce friction, because it takes a long time to rub out a very small ruby. So you have to affix these small rubies, and it is normally rubies, into watches. But how do you glue them in such a delicate mechanism? Well, he was talking to this woman and said, well, what we use as glue, she said, it is the excretions of a particular breed of caterpillar that comes from Iran. Now, by the way, how anybody discovered? How anybody discovered? Oh, do you see that caterpillar there? You see what it's secreted? I bet that'd make a smashing glue, right? So the guy says, "Is this true?" She went, "Yeah, absolutely." She said, "We get pots. They collect these excretions from this particular caterpillar in Iran, she said, and they shipped them over to us. And this woman had a pot of this gooey substance. And what she does is she dips, and the guy saw her do this. She dips a very, very fine kind of stick into it and then draws it out. So she's got a long string of it. She draws it out, so there's a long string of it, and it dries. And it becomes kind of, it is glutinous apparently. And then she cuts it, right, and puts a dab on the jewel and just sticks it in place. And this particular excretion from this caterpillar is absolutely perfect for this job.
Wow.
And that is her entire role. That's all she does. And he said, do you not get bored of that? And she said, well, I've been doing it for 20 odd years. She said, I don't. She's because I know, she said, that if I don't get this right, then the next person down on the production line, because they pass the watch bits along as they go, as they add to them. She said, nothing else will work in the watch if I don't get my bit right. She said, and we all feel like that about what we do. So she said, this might only be a little thing, but it's vitally important. So there is Caterpillar spit in Jaeger LeCoultre watches. How amazing is that?
Well, that is some story. That really is. I mean, you sort of thought they're not going to use super glue, but how else would they do it? And like you say, how did they find that particular caterpillar was the guy for the job?
I don't know. I mean, to people, I don't know. It's a bit like horses, isn't it? But I don't know. Do people still say that, oh, horses, they go to Knacker's Yard and horses get made into glue? Do people still say that?
I don't think so.
Was that a thing when I was a kid? Oh, they boil the bones and they make it. It was a thing. Linda, how did that come about? How did that come about? Were there two blokes just sitting by a campfire and one day looked at a horse and went, do you know what? I reckon they could turn that into some sticky stuff, that horse. I mean, how do you make that leap?
I don't know.
That'll be on the back of a post-it note. That'll be perfect. That on the back of a post-it note.
Well, do you remember the old TV show How? We could have asked them if they'd still been going. They'd probably find out for you. I guess we've got Google now.
Yes, probably, or Ask Alexa in New Zealand.
Ask Alexa, indeed. We could load it as a skill.
There we are.
Well, we're just about there, Nick. And it's been, as usual, a pleasure to talk to you. And last time I asked you a final question, which was one piece of advice. So, I won't bother with that because you gave your advice last time. But what are you currently getting joy from at the moment? What in your life, business, pleasure, whatever, what is it that's giving you a great deal of joy?
Okay, well, on a very shallow level, a car that I bought in September, which I'm really, really enjoying. That's given me a lot of that, puts a smile on my face. This is not meant to be trite, but watching my two sons grow up and develop into young men, and anybody with kids who's listening will identify with that. That just never stops, even though they're 16 and 19. That's still an absolute joy. And I've just teamed up with a guy called Chris Head, who is a teacher, lecturer, but in comedy and presentation. He's a producer of comedy shows. And he recently saw some of the stuff and said, Nick, you've got to put your stuff and make a show to run around the comedy festivals in the UK because you've got 50 minutes of material there. That's brilliant. So we're literally just starting on putting together a 50-minute show, which hopefully will tour the comedy shows of Great Britain, and who knows, one day even make it to your back part of New Zealand. And I can't even pronounce where you live, Linda. In New Zealand.
Near Pukekohe.
Near Pukekohe. There we are. I'll have a tall T-shirt with Pukekohe written on the back. And it'll be your living room.
Well, I hope that all goes really well for you, Nick. It's been a joy talking to you again. Last thing before you go, though, where can people find more about you? Where do you want to send them to?
They should go to rgtraining.co.uk, rgtraining.co.uk. That's my website. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I have a minor percentage of people connected to me on LinkedIn compared to people like you, Linda. So I'm happy to do that. Have a look at my videos. Go on Amazon, type in Nick Davies, Davies, and you'll find my book, How to Be Great at the Stuff You Hate. And so there's the various ways, Linda.
Excellent. Well, thank you once again, and I shall say good morning, good evening.
Morning, good evening. You're off to bed and I'm off to get my breakfast.
Speak again soon. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Tell Us a Story. Why not subscribe or rate us next time you're on iTunes?